If you're a driven, active person who wants to reach and pursue a higher quality life with some ambition, then guess what? This podcast is for you. This is the Driven Athlete Podcast. What's up, y'all? It's your man, Dr. Kyle. Welcome back to the Driven Athlete Podcast. We got the legend Brianna Davenport back with us again to grace us with her presence. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me, as always.
I know you're busy and just got back from traveling.
I did just get back from traveling.
Yeah, so that can be a lot.
It is.
And it was a late
Over
night.
here. Always a late night with traveling back into Florida.
It's a bummer. So all right, remind everybody again, Coastal Bris Wellness.
That's it.
Where you're at, what you're doing, and the type of clientele you see.
Yeah, so fun because we've kind of grown since the last podcast. So previously to this, it was a lot of just nutrition. And since it's grown from nutrition into nutrition response testing, muscle testing, applied kinesiology, that sort of thing, which I've been lucky enough that you've come in to come experience it. And it's neat. It's different.
Yeah.
And so it caught my eye and it goes really well with everything I was doing prior with nutrition. So the office is in Jupiter. And right now it is just an individualized office. It's perfect. Nice little space. So I have people come in there.
It's a good cozy little space.
It is a cozy little space. Yeah.
Attention.
And it's really cool because it's a bunch of other wellness practitioners within the office too. We each just rent a suite. And so we can collaborate off of each other and bounce ideas. So it's really awesome. But what that means, right? Because a lot of people aren't going to know what applied kinesiology and all that, right?
Explain applied kinesiology.
So basically it's frequency testing. And so what that means, like, you're sitting across from me, right? And let's pretend we're phones. So if you're a phone, I'm a phone. And if I am able to touch your arm and use that as a mechanism, just like a tower, okay? So you're a phone, I'm a phone. I send you a text like, hey, we're going to meet up and do this podcast at this time, this date. Boom, pings the tower down to you. You have information. Same thing. Our bodies can resonate in the same way with frequencies. So your body sends me a message. I can feel it through the arm to then have it come into me, which is now the other phone to get the information out of your body.
Gotcha. So it's an extension.
Yeah. So the way I'm using it predominantly is through drainage and detoxification. So noticing that if people have seen our previous podcast, how fitness led me into nutrition has led into this of just that why and finding that route to whatever the issue may be for anybody.
Right.
Because even in your work, like you have somebody come in and it's just like, why does my back always hurt? Yeah. Why does this happen? Like, you know, and so many people in just like the medicinal world and wellness even, you know, they're just like, well, here's a Band-Aid fix. Like, you know, take this medication, do this, do that. But it never gets down to like, what is the actual issue going on here? Right. And I know you see that a lot. Yeah. So from the nutrition standpoint, this was a great way for me to be able to get down to the why.
What do you find the most of that?
I see a lot of heavy metals. A lot of glyphosate for us down in Florida, herbicides. So the stuff that they're spraying out on the golf courses, right? And
so it's just like pluming in the air that we're inhaling?
Yeah, so you're inhaling it. I mean, we're constantly taking it in our food sources, any kind of vaccinations, like things like that, where it's something is being put into the body, drinking water, even showering. You're breathing in the fumes of that water. If your water's not clean, that's coming into your home. That's going to fume off toxins as well. So things like that. And then another big one that a lot of people think is controversial is the concept of parasites. And so I have a lot of people with gut health issues that it's coming back to parasites. So, and myself included.
You mentioned drainage.
Yeah.
Is that what that means?
Yeah. So drainage would be the first part of detoxification. So you get a lot of people who are just like, I'm on a detox program. What does that mean? Like, I'm just going to get some stuff out. So I like to use the pool analogy. Okay. If you've got a filter, but the filter's backed up, how is your pool supposed to clean itself out? So if the body is the pool, and you have nowhere for it to go, it's just going to stay stirred inside of you. As soon as you can get that filter up and running again, now you can filter the body out and purify the water inside of that pool. So same thing, you need your drainage pathways, and that's, you know, wherever something can come out of. So your colon, your pores, right? Anywhere that something can excrete out of. We're meant to sweat. So number one, if you're not sweating, especially if you live down here in Florida, like, drainage issue, big red flag for me. So
what do you find with sweating issues?
Sweating issues usually, I mean, and it's not a perfect standard, but a lot of the time it's toxic metals that you're harboring those metals. And so it's not allowing you to sweat out what you need to. And then on the flip side, of course, if you're seeing like bowel movement issues, right? So can't go too much, things like that, irritable bowel, Crohn's, like all of these things are being shown now to have some sort of connections.
Yeah, it's interesting is like I've been hearing so much. There seems to definitely be a movement. I don't know if I'm just super biased of them getting this fed to me all the time, but a healthcare type of kick direction of, people want to seek different answers of like the underlying cause of the cause. And stuff like autoimmune issues, rheumatoid issues, Crohn's, stuff like that, gut health issues. It's like, problem solved, take this pill and then don't eat this forever, right? Or whatever.
Right. So you still, and like you said, problem solved, but is it?
But why? Genetic, I'm like, it always can be an answer, but I think it's a trash can. That's a lazy answer, I feel like, of like, you're just genetically predisposed to just develop Crohn's.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the case, then what was a trigger that made those genes get expressed so much to create Crohn's? And
that's the big key right there, right? So anybody is going to have a genetic something. We all do at this point. Like humanity's been around for long enough that you're predisposed to something. But that's just the bullet in the chamber. What actually pulled the trigger to then get you to the point that you're at now where you're questioning everything with your health?
Right.
So diving backwards into that.
And what you're finding and suggesting is like a lot of just the environmental factors, herbicides, glyphosates. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Stuff in our
glyphosate,
seed oils in our food.
Dude, everything. Yeah. Because think about it, right? Like you go back to even just like our grandparents or great grandparents, they weren't exposed to any of this. Like the chemicals on the food, it wasn't a thing because the local farmer was little, Billy Bob Joe at the corner who just did all of his own farming.
Right.
And it was true agriculture, and now we have to do it in these mass quantities and mass produce and most of the cattle, like what does that look like? That's a whole separate topic to even go down that road. Yeah. But like where's the sourcing? Yeah, where's the sourcing of our food coming from? What kind of antibiotics are they loading these animals with that we're ingesting? We were never meant to ingest that. We were never meant to breathe in these chemicals in the air. Our air was supposed to be pure. Our water shouldn't be contaminated with lead and radiation and mercury and whatever you may find.
So what have you found with the like cows, right? Cattle and then chickens? There's been a lot of weird, interesting things been going on. I feel like recently with like that big cattle explosion and then chicken explosion, and all these cows just died.
Yeah.
But what have you found with the meddling with hormones or also just the foods that are being fed that then affect their bodies and their physiology and their meat that then we eat and then affects us?
Yeah.
What are you finding about that stuff?
I haven't dove enough into it. I have like conspiracies and we could sit down and go with like case study stuff, I'm sure. So I'm
a selective conspiracy theorist with
100%. You have to be.
Well, at least be like, let's entertain the conversation.
100%.
It's like, well, no way.
Yeah.
I'm not.
There's always a way now. I think that's something we've learned in the last couple of years is like, no, could it be true? There's a chance.
There was someone I was talking to recently that they were like, I don't eat chicken anymore.
Yeah.
I don't eat chickens unless it's like from a farm. Like they literally I just got them.
Well, and that's a good topic to talk about because if you look at a farm-raised chicken or any kind of cattle, and we have some great farmers here, even locally, like Okeechobee and Indiantown, and you look at the quality of that meat side by side with something that you just get at any grocery store, even if it says like, oh, this is organic chicken or whatever at the grocery store, it just, the quality, you can just visually see like it's not there. The coloring of meat, like the meat is supposed to have fat in it when you have ground beef and you just see this like it almost looks like a pasty red. It looks like exactly what it is. It just came through this tube of something and just kind of dropped on this platter and got wrapped in saran wrap. And it's meant to have this deep like earthy red color to it with the fat in it. Chickens, if you look at any of the chicken or even just texture of chicken shouldn't be that like when you eat it and it has like this squeaky sound as you eat it. That's not normal.
That's not good.
That's not quality chicken. So, even just in that of its taste, of its appearance, of whatever, let alone when you actually dive into what the nutrient profile is missing.
If somebody wanted to go locally here in Palm Beach County, if they wanted to get like, I want to get chickens, like legit chickens, like the feathers are still attached.
Yeah.
What do they do?
I go to Farmer Greg. Farmer Greg is at the Hobe Sound Farmers Market every weekend.
Farmers Market, okay.
He's got a farm it's Indiantown, and then he's also got a couple other throughout the middle of the state as well, but he's got the best cattle. I currently have half of a cow sitting in my freezer in the garage.
I was going to say the next thing.
Incredible.
So you can get chicken, like fresh chicken eggs.
Yeah.
And you can get a bunch of it and just deep freeze it.
Yeah, exactly.
Solved.
Yeah. And you can order exactly what you want. So.
Oh, ahead of time.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And so then you just pick up. So do you want half a cattle? Do you want a quarter of it? Do you want more ground beef mixed in with that? They raise their own pigs as well. So do you want their bacon? They do. Yeah. They butcher all that. His wife makes the seasoning for it. So, I mean, it's all done right there the way, nature was intended.
It'd be a really interesting experiment. A family member just got a smoked pulled pork from a grocery store. I'm not going to say what grocery store, but it was a grocery store. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. It was a 12-hour slow smoked, sprayed with apple juice, it was amazing. Pulled it up. I was like, this is, and then ribs.
Incredible.
And then ribs.
Yeah.
And I was like, this might be my favorite thing of all time.
Yeah.
Like slow smoked, it was like literally fall to my, I was like, man, it was so good. But anyway, it would be an interesting experiment of I'm going to do the exact 2 smokers, one by one, and then a grocery store, and then of ribs and pork, pulled pork, or beef,
Sure.
Something. And then next to it, same thing.
Yeah.
Of the Farmer Greg, right? Farmer Greg. And then do the same smoke and see.
Yeah.
Blind tested, randomized controlled, double blind trial.
Yeah.
See if there's a difference in taste.
Yeah.
Or if somebody is battling gut issues and stuff, if they were to tolerate 100%. One or the other.
100%.
But anyway, all right. So Farmer Greg.
Yeah. And I think his company is, I want to say it's Grazed Provisions, I think is the name of his cattle.
But it's Hobe Sound Farmers Market.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. And for those of you guys who actually go there, if you come through the main entrance and head to the right and go past the little tiki hut where they do the coconut waters, he's over there on the right-hand side. He's the first vendor.
Cool.
Yeah, he's great.
We'll have to check that out. And then also eggs and pork. All the meat.
Take the kids.
Yeah, totally. They'd probably like that. And they're like live animals running around, I assume.
Oh, yeah. My daughter loves that.
That's cool. They're animal people, they're animal kids, totally.
Yeah.
They're like, right now their thing is like listening to farm animals on Spotify on,
we love
the car ride.
We love it.
Like, want to hear cows this time. It's just like cows mooing
the whole time.
You're like,
this is great.
They're like laughing and stuff. It's awesome. All right. So the suggestion is, would a regular freezer work, or do you need to get a deep freezer? If you're getting like a half a cow, which would last you, like 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how many people are you feeding, all of that.
But a while.
So we split with another family and we just keep it all at our house because we have the deep freezer and then just give them as they need it.
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact square footage and, all of that of the dimensions of it, but it is a deep freezer and we have the half in there. So,
gotcha.
But I mean, it came with, I want to say like 140 or something like that, just pounds of ground beef, let alone
pounds,
let alone cuts of steak and all of that.
Let me do some math real quick. 140 pounds of beef.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to say it was 140.
I feel like in a sitting, we would probably, if we had like a 3-pound, chuck ground beef from somewhere, we would eat, there would be like 3 meals,
Sure.
So, for a pound a meal, right? So it'd be 140 meals and you eat, let's say you have 5 of that 5 times a week.
Sure.
Right? That would be 140 divided by 5. That's 28 weeks worth of dinner.
Yeah.
Or lunch.
And that's just the ground beef. I mean, now you're talking about there's fillets and there's New York strip and there's all these other steak cuts that come with that. And that makes up the bulk of it.
Yeah. That's really cool. I'm looking forward to
totally worth it.
Doing some slow smoke, some Farmer Greg meat.
Some tailgating.
Tailgate. Yeah, this weekend. I know. I watched a little bit this weekend. It's hard because like the kiddos are at home and it's like, I can sneak in 5 minutes.
Sure.
And then we're doing some other stuff,
Yeah, totally.
Not like we're sitting around, but yeah, football season. Totally. I'm excited. All right. So with your practice, what's the main kind of clientele that you work with? People that have issues or people that are like, I've been feeling a little off, or like high level athletes?
So I really fall under 2 categories now. One is the person that it's like, I have exhausted all options. I've tried all the things. Or like to your point that you were making earlier, like, okay, a doctor has diagnosed them with X. Here's Y to try to, make you feel better. But also you can't eat that ever again. Right. So they're at that point of just like, I don't want this for myself, or I still don't feel good, or I still haven't found true health or wellness. And so they seek me out for that why component. Or I have people who, whether they're athletes or not, and just really focus in on their health, that they're like, I want to do this for just overall wellness. And they kind of look at it as just like, hey, like I take my vitamins and minerals, like you're a part of that. So like, what do we do to optimize my health overall?
Yeah. What kind of protocols for wellness protocols do you find yourself suggesting most often for people? You mentioned heavy metals.
Yeah.
Parasites.
Yeah. Fertilizers, things like that. I'm starting to see more co-infections of Lyme. So like tick bites, you can get it from mosquitoes, things like that. Insect bites.
We've seen that at least 2 in the somewhat recent of chronic Lyme disease patients.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that's another one. And I'm like, this is, it's just an interesting diagnosis, you know, because it's like, it's shunned somewhat and not taken seriously in the allopathic Western medicine arena here. Yeah. And, but they're clearly having issues. Right. So it's like, what do they do? You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, another one, bacteria, mixed candidas, things like that. And then it's a matter of finding a protocol that then works for them because of what they're experiencing. So back to that, like, I know we talked about it in the nutrition podcast we did, but the bio-individuality of it is huge. So, and that also can mean like with the frequency testing, we can do nutrition response testing. So looking to see what things what is resonating with your body this month. So for example, mold's another big one that I see.
Yeah, mold. You said suggesting I had mold in my knee.
Yeah.
Starting in college.
That's where it resonated. Your arm dropped at the knee.
Yeah. When you told me that, you're like, your left knee. And I was like, that's my bad knee.
Yeah. So, and that's what's fun too, is I tell a lot of people just like, you know, for fun, don't tell me what's going on. Just come in, you know, just give it a try, see if it's your thing. And 9 times out of 10, somebody comes in and they're like, there's no way you could have known XYZ. Yeah. Like, how did my arm drop?
That's very interesting.
And it's all just energy. That's what it is. It's an energy and a frequency exchange. You know, it's not a diagnostic and it's not a treatment tool by any means. But, you know, if it's something that you're willing to look into, and it was something I was willing to look into it for my own health. Yeah. It's just one extra tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. Just to be open to at least investigating and entertaining an idea of like, can this help? Or find something. Yeah. Because nothing else is helping. Or I want to optimize.
Exactly.
But it was really interesting because you were pushing my arm down, you know, and you didn't know anything, and you were just going around with the mold particular vial, and then you like stopped at my knee and went up and down a couple of times. You're like, something's going on with your knee right here, and like, have you had issues with this knee? And I'm like, this is like my original bad knee.
Sure. Yeah.
Starting in college.
And that's the kind of stuff I see every day.
It was really interesting.
Something.
That's really cool.
The body will speak if you let it.
Yeah. Totally. That's a great way to put it. So what kind of questions do clients usually ask you the most commonly?
I wouldn't say there's really a common, because people are coming in with such diverse backgrounds, such diverse issues. I mean, the biggest one is like, how can you help? How will this help? You know, because a lot of people just want that right now fix.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, the explanation of we do need to work on some drainage. You know, most people have not done that kind of work. If you go back to that pool analogy we were talking about earlier, they haven't done the work yet. So your body needs to do that. So that in itself is a protocol. So a drainage protocol. So opening up those pathways. I work with a couple of different companies, and it depends. So one of the companies that we've talked about before is Cellcore. I love Cellcore. They're, you know, I kind of put them on a pedestal. I've recently brought in a couple of other companies. Energetics is one of them. They're great because it's not capsules. Majority of their products, a lot of their products are in liquid form. So as far as like for when I'm dealing with kids or somebody who's just like, I am so tired of trying to swallow, you know, all these capsules, and I'm taking this from this practitioner and this. So it depends. And again, it's all in the frequency of the testing. So I let the body tell me what it is. So I get out of my headspace, and I mean, I use logic enough in the sense of like, okay, if somebody's testing for something, it usually starts lining up, and I'm like, yeah, those things make sense. But I'm not sitting there going, well, Kyle, based off of your age and this, I'm going to give you this. Yeah. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
You know, or this concept of a one size fits all, because I don't know if you guys know how tall he is, and obviously he is a man, and how short I am. And as a female, like you and I should not be doing the same things, right? You know, so even down to that. So the drainage protocol, you and I could test for the exact same supplements, but then I even break it down as far as to say, let's find out how many the body is resonating with. So you may test for, say, 4 capsules of something in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, and I'm only testing for 1 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. afternoon. So everybody's protocol looks completely different from one person to another.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's good though.
Yeah.
And so drainage, what the pathway that usually it depends on everybody. Mold, we fall in the same boat. Parasites, because I know parasites is a really common one.
Yeah.
You were describing to me some of the things that you found with your clients and stuff like that, and clientele. That's just a really common thing. So parasites are much more common than we think.
100%.
And they're from
you name it.
just everywhere.
Everywhere.
And then they just harvest within your gut.
They can. So the problem that I see with it is that in ancient times, you could have eaten, or drank, or however you're receiving parasites into your body at a microscopic level, and you could have been fine. And it's part of your microbiome. So they're not all bad. They're not all meant to be removed. Like, it is a part of, the circle of life. But the problem that I've seen and the case studies I've seen is that we live in this westernized world. We consume somehow these parasites, but then we also eat the things that allow them to thrive. So we give them the sugars, the processed carbs, all of the stuff that as humans we were never meant to have, that we've industrialized. So you go from one day saying, I'm going to have this steak, or I'm going to have these fresh strawberries. Well, anything that's coming from the earth like that is parasitic. We as humans are parasitic. I mean, think about baby in utero, like you're literally living off of your mother as a host. Like it's literally the circle of life. But once we started humanizing everything and saying, well, let's have these, I know Cheez-Its are your favorite, so let's go back to that. You have the Cheez-Its, like
the hot spicy Cheez-Its.
Yeah, and again, time and place. But then it's a matter of then knowing, okay, I know this isn't the best thing for my body, but for so many of us, especially those of us like young to mid 30s who lived in that era of just like you ate kind of whatever you wanted in the 90s and it wasn't really a big deal, or the late 80s, and you didn't really watch anything. Like milk was the biggest detriment. They had those commercials everywhere, right? And now we're even learning like milk in its purest form is fantastic for you if your microbiome is correct.
Yeah. So the refined sugars and processed carbs are the
big ones.
And seed oils,
alcohol.
Those are the main things that help make parasites that we don't want to proliferate, get bigger, stay latched on.
Yeah. Another thing too, they also like to harbor the toxicity that comes in. So those are easy toxicities to spot because we are ingesting them. So that's like the obvious answer. But the parasites can also then hold any kind of toxic metals that are coming in as well. So a lot of times what I'll see is if there is a detox going on for somebody, they could simultaneously be removing toxic metals and parasites.
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah. What do people usually say after, when do they see results? And then what do they usually say? It's good. Like, I feel amazing. Or
that's a great question.
Less bloated.
Yeah. And everyone's different depending on where things are going on. So like, for example, you brought up the mold in your knee. Like wherever that resonance is usually where you're going to see some kind of a difference, right? So somebody who comes in and if mold, let's say, for example, would have been in the head, maybe they're like, oh, my brain fog's gone. Yeah, that headache that I always got, or that, 3:00 crash isn't such a big deal for me anymore. Yeah. Some people, it's like sinus issues. They're used to just being constantly drainaged, nose running, eyes watering, something like that. And they're like, I actually haven't noticed that in a few days. Somebody else, if it's a chronic gut issue and they're like, you know what? I noticed I actually had a normal bowel movement today and I'm not bloated after I ate food. So everyone is completely different in what they're experiencing based off of what they came in looking for in the first place.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, imagine it would definitely very uplifting to see the fulfillment, to see the improvements like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. And for toxic metals, okay, same thing. It was just in the atmosphere. It's all over the place.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah.
Locally, in this particular region of Palm Beach County, are there any, what would proliferate that more? The ocean, like the pollutants in the ocean?
I mean, from a personal perspective, I mean, we could probably go and actually test a lot of that as it pertains to right here in our local area. But I mean, compared to the rest of the country, the number one thing that stands out to me is how many golf courses we have. Yeah. And on top of, you take the golf courses out of it, you just look at communities and all of in Florida, a lot of the, what's it called? The dividers in the road, and it's all, beautiful landscaping, and it's constantly being treated with something, and it's always chemicals. Well, now the chemicals are being sprayed on the golf course in your yard, which again is a year-round thing down here in Florida. We don't go through a winter where we stop using all of the landscaping and lawn care.
Yeah.
And so now it's a year-long thing of just sprays on sprays on sprays. So if they spray something close to, say, the ocean of all the golf courses on, right on the beach,
yeah,
breeze comes through, lifts all that up, and just it's in the air. It's inevitable. So, we talked about conspiracy theories earlier too. Like, do we want to talk about chemtrails, things like that, where it's just like it's in the air? But as it pertains to Florida, I would say that's a big concern, at least that I see, are the fertilizers and chemicals that are being sprayed year round.
It seems like, what have you found in the research with some of the development and the eye-opening epiphanies that pharmaceutical companies and food companies were like, wait a second, if we like double down on this stuff, we're going to create recurring customers a lot longer.
Yeah.
And then also it's going to make these issues more prevalent.
Yeah.
Which makes them need us more.
Yeah.
For longer.
Absolutely.
I heard recently, like, it seemed like the late 80s and 90s is when that seemed to be a directional change, where before that, it wasn't really even a thought.
Yeah.
I know for the healthcare system, like, it seems like health insurance, that was in the 90s. From my understanding, I'm always open to hearing other ideas and viewpoints and stuff, where they didn't know yet that, like, insurance companies were being taken advantage of by fraudulent billing for healthcare providers, right? I know for all the clinics that had physical therapy as part of their ancillary services, because at that point it was an ancillary service to the docs clinics, they were, fraudulently billing and doing well.
Right.
It was like the Wild West.
Right. Yeah.
So they could double charge if their particular clinic was on a corner of a street. They could bill for one address, and the other address on the same building, but different corners with different address.
Exactly.
And they get double the income.
Yeah.
Anyway, insurance then at that point was like, wait a second, we're going to take advantage of it. They found out, and then they made more stipulations and red tape. And then when they found out it was way more challenging for them to get reimbursed, they were like, wait a second, what if we like double down on making it more challenging and more red tape, and these businesses can't get reimbursed, and the patients can't get reimbursed, and then we just keep more money. Yeah. And then we just grow our profits better.
I mean, and you nailed it right there. Profits. It's a business, right?
Totally.
And, people like yourself and myself that actually want to help, like genuinely care, I think people see that in us. Yeah. And I think that, it's a trust thing. And so they trust us with their health and wellness. And, I know you're cash based and so am I. And, part of that's a legality thing on my end. But it's like, why even dabble in it? It's not something I agree with. It's not, the structure doesn't make sense. The way that people are taken advantage of throughout the system. Like, and it has its perks. It has its perks, especially for like an acute situation. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, my Lord, if I get in a car accident on 95 and there's a pull in my chest, like, please take me to the emergency room.
Catastrophic.
Yeah, totally. 100%. But what baffles me is how our, day to day, just our overall wellness and our care is treated in a sort that it doesn't even make sense anymore. Yeah.
Totally. But like what you were saying, people, I think this is something that I advocate for a lot of colleagues and other healthcare practitioners are going this route. That's cash based. Services, is that it's never going to go out of like a one-on-one high quality service and like paying attention and like actually trying hard. Like, just try hard. Like, I want you to think critically and dive into like, what's going on here? How can we solve this?
Yeah, but you nailed it. It's the care part. People are willing to come and see us for that 30-minute, the hour appointment, the hour and a half, if that's something you offer. Yeah. Because you're not you're not just a number. You're not just a statistic of a folder that gets put back on a shelf when somebody leaves. Yeah. I pride myself on all of my clients have some way of reaching out to me, whether it's through social media or text message or whatever, and they do. Yeah, and they do. And it'll be like, hey, I noticed X, Y, and Z. Is this normal? Or, I get pictures of their toilet and they're like, is this a parasite? I think it could be. And so it's, they keep coming back because you care. That's the point. And like the whole model, at least of my business, was I was exposed to practitioners who did care. And I was like, that's what I want.
I want to be you. I want to be just like,
But exactly. I want to bring that to others. Like you have put value into my life and I care about this. So this is what I need to do and send it back to others.
So I know you mentioned you're from Buffalo, and the guy that, right? And then
I'm actually from Chicago, but this keeps coming up. So maybe I'm just meant to be a Buffalonian forever. My whole family's from Buffalo. In my eyes, I'm from Buffalo. So we'll go with that.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Or Bears.
No.
Bills?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought so.
Yes.
Okay. The guy that was one of your original mentors for going this route with Coastal Bris Wellness.
Yeah.
He's in Buffalo, has a clinic there. You just got back from there. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Yeah, so his name's Jimmy Scaringi. He's incredible in the world of muscle testing and quantum nutrition response testing because he does a lot of stuff virtually. So he works with people all over the world and throughout the country in some pretty extreme cases. So he's incredible. I've gotten to learn from him in muscle testing, and I actually hired on a new nutrition coach at Coastal Bris. So her and I went up to see the space and to see what they're trying to do. What are you guys trying to accomplish? What's the mission here? How does everything work? Ironically enough, synergistically, and that is their business name. It's 716 Synergy.
Cool.
And so just to like see what that looks like. What does that mean? How are you helping people to the fullest? And even the conversations you and I have had, it's just like, I'm not doing exactly what you're doing. Obviously you're doing PT day to day, but how much have we learned from each other of just like, oh, that's good. Like I want to add that component, or that makes more sense to do it this way. Just
a lot of crossover.
Yeah. Beep bopping ideas. Even, last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a conversation about how are we dealing with clients and keeping them organized and just all of that. So, bouncing the business ideas off of each other, I think is huge. And I just like networking in general. So being able to see how people who have come before to like lead the way in that space and just keep learning from that is huge for me.
Cool.
To just keep
and
growing.
See it in action.
Yeah.
Did you, what other, I assume you probably learned some stuff clinically as well, right?
Yeah, more of it was like the behind the scenes tour this time, which was pretty cool, of just how is everything set up? What does their membership look like? Like, what does their apothecary of those supplements of the protocols we've been talking about, like, what do they keep in stock? What kind of companies are they working with? Yeah. Who do they trust? You've done a ton of research in the last 20-ish years. Like, what does that look like for you? And so just, again, that whole kind of concept of like, what are you doing? How does this make sense? Is there a way that we can make this even better? Do we combo ideas of something else of I got this idea from this person, this idea from this, and then just loved what I was already doing with this, bring it together. So it was really eye-opening to be able to see somebody else who has such an established business of that already going that is serving his community so well. And in a place like Buffalo, like at least for me, that's not somewhere that I like immediately think of like health and wellness.
Right.
I immediately go to places like Colorado or even down here, like the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. Right. And so it's like, well, if they're doing it in Buffalo and it's groundbreaking work, and there's other people doing it across the country too, but it's like, if you're making that big of an impact, like how much of an impact can we make in Jupiter?
Yeah, totally.
In West Palm.
There's no reason why not.
Right.
There's no reason why it can't be done.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Remind me with you mentioned water, right? Mm-hmm. I know we had talked about it in the past. What kind of things in the community water in our houses are we noted, or in our homes and stuff, that are detrimental?
I wouldn't use the word detrimental. I mean,
inflammatory
it is, I guess, in theory, right? But I mean, the big ones that I can think of off the top of my head, case study wise, radiation and radon coming through the water. But that's not only just what's coming through, the actual piping and into your home of how that is now you're drinking water and you're brushing your teeth with it or whatever. That's also even in water bottles that we just think and trust of, okay, I'm just going to go buy this water and drink it. And now you are drinking the contaminated water. So, even wells, like I would have said years ago, wells would have made more sense. And now even those are contaminated because you have the runoff of just a multitude of things, those pesticides and herbicides. Exactly. Yeah. So it's just this never ending battle. And so with a lot of the people I'm seeing right now, one of their questions is, how long is this protocol going to take? They want to know when's the answer. Or I'm sure you see that. Like how many sessions with my PT until I'm
like
good.
When will I be 100%?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I tell everybody, and it is the truth. Everyone's different. You and I could present with something that's very similar, and I take 12 months to even get through the initial, like, okay, we've really gotten a good foundation here, and you might be 4 months. It just depends. The bodies are all different.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it for sure, as far as like what those protocols are looking like. But then what I tell people too is like, just keep in mind all those things that you accumulated over those years that we just worked to detox are still out there, and you're still exposing yourself to them.
Yeah. I was going to say, what's the best thing? What's the worst thing someone can do once we drain, detox, get feeling better for sure?
Just go back to your old life.
Which would include, like, what is the most detrimental things? Is the eating the seed oils, refined sugar, and
it's
processed
literally,
carbs?
it's the combination of all of it, right? So if you've done all that work, and let's say same thing with you, you have somebody who comes in with an injury, right? Let's say it's a shoulder injury, and you get them feeling pretty good, and they're not quite 100%, but you're like, hey, let's keep going at this. And they're like, I'm going to go snatch like 100-pound dumbbell over my head. It's just like, why? What are we going backwards for? Right? So it's that concept of always moving forward with it. And you've done all of this work. Don't ruin it by just doing silly things.
Yeah, like perfect. I'm going to go right back to exactly what I was doing.
Right. And again, you can't, and the side of what I'm dealing with, a lot of it is nutrition based or lifestyle based. So it's not necessarily a very specific, throwing a dumbbell over your head, but it's those things of you now have been made aware of what you were exposed to prior is probably what led to this.
So how does somebody remedy their continual exposure to the herbicides?
Sure.
Toxic and heavy metals.
The best thing you can do, because you're going to be exposed. Yeah. Like, unless you move out of the country and you decide to go somewhere else that you can do your research and go find somewhere else to live that doesn't have it, you're going to be exposed to it.
Or just wear a
it just is what it is.
All the time.
No, so I tell everybody, I'm like, you know what? Drainage and detox protocols are my personal new multivitamins. Like, how many people were chewing on those Flintstones vitamins when we were kids, just like you do all that stuff, or people take their omegas, or people take, we've brought up magnesium before of, people think it's a trendy thing. I'm going to always, take this. And for some people it's definitely needed for sure. But it's that idea of like, we already take all these things. And we don't even know if there's necessarily a purpose to that. But this does have a purpose in the sense of, you're going to be exposed to all these things. You've done the deep dive work to get through that protocol. Now let's maintain it, right? And same thing with like even animals on a farm. They get dewormed every year. Why aren't we doing some sort of a protocol?
Considering that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, we're exposing ourselves to all these same things. Let's get that out of our bodies to feel better, and then go into maintenance phases. And then, hey, let's re-spot check. And if things feel a little bit off, let's take a look at that again.
With the initial intense plan protocol for wellness, and then wean out into a maintenance plan.
Yeah.
And for some people it's daily, some people it's or like supplements. It's really supplements.
Yeah, it's usually at least something daily. It's kind of a generalized, maybe a morning and afternoon type of thing. But by the time it's maintenance, it's fairly basic. Like when I've been on basic before, it's just to be on a maintenance pack. I might be taking 3 supplements. What do
you feel the most of like, oh, I'm on a good plan. I'm good. Maintenance now. I feel a lot better. In what ways?
Yeah. Every ways, or all of the ways. Anyways, all the things. All the things.
Yeah.
From anything of when I hit any kind of weight loss plateaus, or when I feel like I'm in the gym and I'm like, why can't I move up in these weights to gain more strength? So anything body wise. And I'm like, oh, well, when I can break through these barriers and start adding on weight in the gym, like that makes more sense to me. Oh, I'm cutting now again, and I'm actually able to lose this weight. When my bowel movements are super consistent, when my energy is super consistent. So I know I'm in a bad spot if I need that 3 o'clock nap consistently. Like, you're going to need it here and there, right? Yeah. You have a bad travel day, kids kept you up all night, someone's sick, or just whatever, like things happen. But if it's that consistent, like every day, 3-4 o'clock hits and you just feel like you got punched in the face, so it's noticing those things and being super in tune with my body, of understanding, like, I know these things are when I am not at my best self. And I know that these things are definitely when I am more at my peak, or at least in a higher place. And I try to focus on staying there.
Yeah. What's exercise like while on like a drain or like an intense, or I don't want to say intense, a more purposeful, heavy.
Fantastic question. So for women, it's easier to understand. I explain it's like going through your cycle. So you can have high highs, low lows. It kind of just depends. You ebb and flow with it. So there could be a day you're hitting a PR one day, and then the next day you're just like, I feel like I am moving in slow motion. But when you're detoxing, your body's doing a lot of work, right? So it takes up a lot of your energy. So that energy that you would want to put towards any kind of fitness, working out of any sort, may be burnt out for that bit. And again, it's just part of that cycle. But on the contrary, what's life going to look like for you if you don't? Right.
Exactly.
So you're going to be burnt out in one way or the other. Yeah. So I personally choose that I'd rather be burnt out and try to eliminate some of these things and go through those ebbs and flows of, okay, don't feel great this week, but I'll feel better next week. When the protocol changes, I know this gives me more energy. This one's a lot harsher because I'm detoxing more of the things that are a systemic issue for me. And I know I need to cut back on it, or just not even cut back in the sense of no exercise, but in the sense of, hey, you can't expect to go out and like hit some PRs today. Let's just move your body. Yeah. Like that's it. Yeah. Even if it's a walk, like just keep it simple.
I feel like one of the biggest, just in general, right, for health, like joint health, pain and stuff. And then what you're talking about, it's just the expectation going into it of like, all right, going to this, let's expect probably not going to be on a super high trend of PRing every week. Yes. And then when it does happen, just roll with it, live to fight another day, but we know that we're on the right track.
Exactly.
And then through a couple weeks, right? Like 4 weeks, 5, like usually how long is those initial detox?
Yeah. So
last?
It kind of depends again, because it depends on where that major issue of that why comes in. Okay. So some people whose drainage pathways are so blocked, for them, it could be that initial part where they're just like, I have no energy. Like, well, your body's doing all its work to fix that pool filter. It is working so hard. But once that pool filter's fixed, maybe you don't have that many like super systemic issues that it's going to be problematic for you. For somebody like me, drainage was a breeze. I was just like, okay, like this feels great. I've got a lot of energy. I feel good. Like bowel movements are regular. I'm sweating normally, all the things. I got to more of like my version of a phase 2, phase 3, started getting into parasites, like deeper parasites, and they can be everywhere, by the way. Like it's not just a stomach thing or a gut thing. So
what were you saying in the
brain, sinuses, I mean your lungs. So depending on where you're going to get them, how severe of a problem, how severe are the toxic metals, like each individual person, what that looks like, that's where I'm saying that ebb and flow. For me, drainage was fine. Even into a basic phase 2 of working on some gut health stuff, I was pretty okay, even energy-wise as far as the gym. But once I started going deeper, that systemic stuff of into the brain, like really deep into the gut, that's when I was like, all right, like this is some deep work. But I did it, got through it, and now it's not an issue.
How long did it last for you?
So that initial protocol that I did was 5 months.
Okay.
To really dive deep. And then circled back around, did some maintenance for a while, and then I redid the protocol about a year later and still had results of like physically seeing parasites. When you're detoxing metals, you can smell it. It almost smells like coins in your sweat. Yeah.
Interesting.
You may your mouth may taste more metallic, things like that. But when I'm doing it, it's not this, and I'm actually on it right now. I am on a deeper dive right now. So you notice certain things, but it doesn't pack that punch like it did before. And I'm sure same thing in PT. Like, hey, if you want to make this more of like a functional movement type of thing, like we've gone through the clinical side. We have, treated you after injury, surgery, whatever it may be. But now let's be functional about it. It's the same concept. Like, let's be smart in the way that we're moving our bodies versus just like have a free for all and go to X, Y, and Z, gym or just go home and like no one knows what you're doing with your body. You're just kind of making stuff up as you go. And now you're back in here hurt. Right. It's the same exact thing. Like, I'd rather you not just go out into the world and be like, okay, well, I did it. And now here we are again. We have to restart from scratch or just keep it and maintain it so it never really gets to be an issue.
We were saying with the brain, the parasites in the brain, their waste is ammonia, and that causes the brain fog.
It can, yeah. Yeah, it definitely can lead to some brain fog for sure because it's not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And especially in the quantities that it can be.
Besides fog, what else does parasites in the brain cause?
I mean, the case studies show
Headaches?
it could be, oh yeah, for sure headaches. I mean, they're showing that it could be anything from even schizophrenia. Like some of the literature is really cool. That could be an entire different podcast. But I mean, if you think about it very simplistically, a lot of the things where they are correlate to a lot of disease that's going on. So, and that's strictly from the literature. That's not me saying that. That's just like, hey, this case study showed this. Like we happen to find parasites with also somebody who was diagnosed with this. Yeah. So, like mental disorders, they're seeing like toxic metals in the brain with a link to autism, things like that. So there's a lot of really cool research out there. Lyme, same thing, but it's a matter of where it is, kind of correlates a lot of the time, which is pretty cool. Yeah. You have stomach issues. Okay. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I passed some parasites and I don't have that inflammation like I did in the bloating. And it's like, it's a cool you just start questioning everything.
Yeah, totally.
Because I was like, do I actually have like an IBS issue that these doctors are telling me? And then I was like, wait a second. I just passed a ton of parasites, can physically see them. Yeah. And now I don't have that problem anymore. Yeah. That's interesting to me. So
now what?
Right.
Ride that train.
Right. Yeah. So that's where, as I questioned my own health and started seeing the difference, and I'm like, so is it actually this label that you want to slap on me? Or is this a basic toxicity issue that if you got rid of the toxicity issue, this isn't even an issue?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Really interesting. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
Thanks
for having me.
Sharing more about all this stuff. It's super
always
interesting. How can people reach out to you? What's the best way?
Yeah. Instagram's awesome. I'm on Instagram at Coastal Bris Wellness, BRIS. That's probably my best. Yeah. I've got a lot of really good stuff on there. Kind of pushes the narrative a little bit of wellness.
Some good content.
Yeah. For sure.
Little nuggets throughout the day.
For sure.
Well, thanks again for coming in. I know you're busy.
Absolutely.
We'll link up again soon. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. For us, right? For orthopedic sports physical therapy, we're always open to helping people, at least having a conversation. And you can reach out to us at our email is probably the best option at team@athleterc.com. And we're always open to suggestions too for podcasts, comments, questions, concerns, topics, conflicting opinions. We're always open to that. So thanks for checking in again.
Yeah.
We'll link up again soon.
Always.
And then we'll catch y'all next time.